Director, Principal Architect, and the driving force of the 45-member team of Delhi and Bangalore-based firm, AVA Design Studio. Vistas Bhapagar has been practicing for over 2 decades and completed over 1,000 projects. One of the renowned names in the domain of commercial space design, he leads the three verticals of AVA Architecture Studio, Delhi, AVA Interior Studio, Delhi, and AVA Interior Studio, Bangalore, winning several awards as recognition of the creative endeavors of the studio. The portfolio of AVA covers various categories such as corporate, institutional, public spaces, retail, hospitality, abiding by the company mantra of making creativity count. An alumni of the School of Planning and Architecture and a Master's in Urban Design from Oxford Brookes University in the UK. Very few people know that Vistas is an avid photographer, a cartoonist, and more recently, a poet. Please join your hands together. So, Vistas, would you like to just quickly comment on, just 2 minutes, viewpoint on what the theme is?
Yeah, so most exciting theme to have to start up a morning conference like this. I think plagiarism and inspiration, I think we all fight this battle in our minds, all the time. There's so much of, inspiration that's coming in through, a lot of new materials, through a lot of, stuff that comes on the mails, through, the web, the internet. And I think it's very important in such a discussion to first define what is plagiarism. I mean, plagiarism is really borrowing somebody else's lines or somebody else's ideas or thoughts and presenting them as your own. And and what's inspiration? Inspiration is, well, being impressed by somebody else's thoughts, words, photographs, projects in our domain of work, and then being influenced by it. So the thin line between plagiarism and inspiration, is really very thin. And how do you go about really defining this? And to my mind comes this very appropriate thing. I read up Mark Twain said that there is no original idea left in the world. Everything is either being borrowed or being put together in a kaleidoscopic form and really being presented. I mean, Mark Twain, a great author, saying that from a literary context, perhaps. But if you really were to define what's plagiarism and what's inspiration, I'd say that plagiarism is all about lifting a whole lot of lines, a whole paragraph of built form and trying to pretend that's yours. Whereas inspiration is borrowing from some of the words of that paragraph. Say for example, if we talk in a building context or for the built environment, if one was to pick just about all the sentences, all the elements, all the attributes of a design that inspires you, maybe any part of the world, and you're actually putting that all together in toto, not picking elements. I think that's plagiarism, and that's something we need to caution ourselves against. Plagiarism is never intentional. I think only foolish people would intentionally, get into this area. Plagiarism is often unintentional. It's often the subconscious. I mean, honestly, there's no architect sitting around who would really not want to do his own work. But yes, we all are under such influences and under such, so much of external impression is being made upon us that we would tend to borrow. So we've got to be very careful about trying to, surf out what's really original and trying to put our own sentences together rather than lifting paragraphs from someone else.
Thank you, sir. I think very rightly, sometimes we also define what the theme is. So I don't think I will have to get into too much detail on that. We probably head to the questions straight on there. Our next panelist is architect Vivek Gupta, a design practitioner with over 40 years of experience in the field of urban planning, architecture and interiors. He's a firm believer in built-to-suit architecture that comes with a strong acknowledgement of climate, coordinates and time. He refers to himself as a chef who does a lot of cooking, of ideas mostly, and on some occasions, food. He founded AVA Design Studio in 1984 to bring the craft of interiors, architecture, and urban planning together in a single workspace. His work tends to bear a design vocabulary that is open to interpretation of experience. Or as he says, think of my projects like savoring a dish. You give me an egg, and instead of an omelette, I'll present a souffle. His style constitutes a bit of flamboyance with a hint of imperfection, yet is fundamental, allowing the users to enjoy the built form. Apart from having completed eminent projects, he's also a jury speaker and panelist at various design platforms and has been recognized as one of the Hot 100 Architects pan-India. Thank you, Vivek, for joining us today. Would you like to add your 2 bits on plagiarism in design?
Well, to me, Vistapal actually finished the topic and he just explained everything that needed to be said about this. To me, there is nothing original under the sun. God created earth and thereafter everything is either a word like I like to use is biomimicry or we are inspired by that. In this entire audience, if I was to ask you to draw a ghost, what would you do? You know, because you haven't seen a ghost, so everybody has an impression. And this is what you will try to do. Perhaps we've heard that there is a certain form that a ghost has, but it could be air, it could be wind, it could be a cloud, it could be anything. So thereafter, everything that we do in architecture is geometry, is form. It's based on inspiration from the nature of what we see. So to be able to say that this is my original idea, I really do not think. Architecture is also in our DNA. There is a thing called prototyping. People like Sabina and me who've studied in Chandigarh are so hugely influenced by the great master architect Corbusier, so that when we build our own homes, I think both of us have built homes in brick and concrete and everything. So there is this inspiration that you draw from kind of architecture that influences you. There is a sharp divide between people who believe in ornamentation in architecture and people who believe in less is more kind of is. Throughout our journey as an architect, we are told and we have been influenced by master architects. And the whole thing about following a master architect who has influences on you should continue, I think. And that much of trace of any inspiration, it only adds to your creativity, because every time you draw a line, you will be adding your bit of creativity to it, but you could always be influenced by something. So I don't really, like Vistap said, that plagiarism will be something that you will fully copy something. I think the plagiarism of planning is more something that is to be looked down upon. But in elevation, any which ways, I think the building form is, architecture is about optics, it's about visuals. So you will somewhere or the other be influenced by a built form and the kind of fenestration patterns that are there, or the overall shape of the building that is there, and the approach to architecture which is there. There is very difficult line that I will be able to draw between kind of a copying, obviously is a very wrong thing, but between plagiarism and inspiration, there is a very thin line, and I think that needs to be debated upon.
Thank you. I'll now introduce our next panelist, Mr. Kuldeep Singh, Associate Vice President, New Product Development at JSL Lifestyle. He takes care of NPD activities for kitchens, infrastructure, plumbing, and railways. He's also responsible from production activities and product upgradation programs for the kitchen vertical. Kuldeep, here, you're bringing in an industry perspective, really. So, what is your take on sort of plagiarism in design?
Design is something, from architectural aspect, it's a different thing also. From the product perspective, we definitely do face a lot of problems. In the sense that it's not, when you design a product, a product has a shape, a form, a finish, a texture, a lot of things which go into it. And when that is copied in totality, or people tweak it a bit, as rightly said, you take the complete thing, copy it, or tweak it a bit, take part of it and part of yours. So that is the problematic situation here with us. If I talk about our own experiences, I mean, what we have been facing is that we make the products and we are a design-led company. JC Lifestyle is a design-led company, and we as a brand name Ardenox, that is basically Inox is stainless steel and Arden is stainless steel. So that is the name Ardenox. And we have designers from India and international designers who do the designing for us. And we really pay out of our mouth to them, honestly. And when the product there's a lot of research which goes behind that product, a lot of R&D, a lot of prototyping is done, and then again research how the product is going to behave in the market. Only after that it is launched in the market. But when it is launched, and many of the products have won Red Dot Awards, and iDesign Awards. And these products, when we have got showrooms across pan India. And when these are getting copied, and what people do is they find little bit and they bring it out in the market at lower price. And lower price with the inferior quality material. So that really gives us a bad name. Because being stainless, people are using inferior material and the material doesn't perform properly. So for us, it's a problem. It's not only a form, okay fine, if you're just copying a form, that's fine. But if you copy the entire thing, so yeah, they are.
Within the company, it's fine, but when other people start
Copying it and selling it out in the market at low price. And when that product doesn't perform, then we get a bad name that it's an Ardenox product.
So you could be patenting your product.
We do, in spite of
Possible written architecture or design, you can't really patent a building.
we do patent our products, but what they do is they find to tweak slightly, they'll make some changes, then the patent is no more valid. That's the problem.
Fair enough. Thank you so much.
I would add one more thing. There is another thing to design. Like we have been doing a lot of work with railways. We do a lot of product specific design. We develop a lot of products with them. Like you must have heard about the detention tank, which is put in the Rajdhanis and Shatabdis. Now what happens is that we develop the initial one, and then it goes for tendering. So the L1, whoever bids low, he gets it, and all designing and everything goes by us. Recently there was a case when we had order of 1 lakh benches. The Indian Railways has decided that they put 1 lakh benches pan India on the railway platforms. We did all the prototyping, designing, testing, and getting ideas for approval and everything. But finally, what happened? Again, the same, the lowest bidder took it up. So it's, I'll not call it stealing or something, but there is no solution to this.
I think you have the right chord for all the architects. So, anyways, moving on to the moving on to our next panelist, Manishi. Manishi is a partner at Design Cosmos, founded in 2008, the graduate of SP in New Delhi, and she designs with an acute sense of contextual functionality, a high level of dedication and understanding of the user, all coming together in the core idea of creating space for an enhanced environment. She strongly feels that design is a labor of love, the multiplicity of partnership, the minute attention to detail, the technical know-how, the management skill required, all make it complex expression that can be well practiced if it's embraced wholeheartedly and without reservation. Her priority has been to establish a close relationship between architecture and people. She specializes in designing timeless spaces which are beyond the facts and don't struggle to be new and inventive for the sake of being so. The studio's projects are regularly featured in national and international design journals, and Manishi has also won acclaim from various awards. Thank you, Manishi, for being here.
Thank you. So, since I want you to move on to the questions, I'm going to keep it very short and just add to what has already been beautifully said and explained about plagiarism. I think what the thin line between plagiarism and inspiration, if you can, I'm talking about design totally here, architecture design, if you can turn around and say thank you to the person for giving inspiration, that's inspiration. And if you think you want to hide your design and you really are hoping nobody or the person from whom you have copied doesn't come across something like this, or when you publish a design, nobody really sees the original, that's plagiarism. If you think you can say thank you, that's inspiration. I think once that funda is clear, I guess we know that's the difference between plagiarism and inspiration.
Thank you, Manishi. I'd now like to introduce Sabina Khanna, architect and founder of Studio Kia. She spearheads with her architect husband, Rajiv Khanna, both of who are alumni of the prestigious Chandigarh College of Architecture. For Sabina, every day is a learning experience and she seeks inspiration from everything around her and everyone she meets. For in Kia, it is always about people. Hence, all their designs are people-centric. Sabina has been featured amongst the Hot 100 architects of the country and has been recognized by Asia Biz Today as a trailblazer in the global realms of real estate and architecture. Studio Kia's prestigious profile transcends scale and use, namely master planning and urban design, retail and hospitality, recreational, commercial and mixed-use projects, to residential environments that currently form its focus. Thank you, Sabina, for being here today.
Thank you, Tanya. Well, I think I would personally have very little to add to what the esteemed panelists have already spoken about plagiarism. But just adding my 2 bits to it is, yes, that plagiarism on the face of it is copy. But here we are talking about the fine line between copying and seeking inspiration. And just like you did read in my brief, and it said she seeks inspiration from everything and everyone around her. So that definitely is, I don't copy, I don't plagiarize, but yes, I positively seek inspiration. So the only thing I feel it is the extent of copying is what is important. You know, it's to what extent has something been copied or inspiration has been taken, that it does fall into the category of being plagiarized as such, you know, which is very important. So the copying or creativity, seeking inspiration and then creating it, you know, just imbibing that inspiration and then be able to create it, add your own creativity to it, or laterally copying it, is the thought, is that fine line that we are here to talk about, you know. So there's really no direct yes or no to it, a good or a bad to it. But yet, we are in the larger visual domain where where anything plagiarized is visible for all. Unlike in the literary field where one has to read the original and then be able to read some and then know. But here, comparable from apple to apple or apples to oranges is there in the larger domain for everybody to see, you know. But basically at the back of it, it comes from a slightly unethical practice, as you say, but are you using that inspiration, you know, to further create something interesting and positive, or is it a direct copy? That fine line has to be walked, and that is what has to be debated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, for setting out the tone for the next round of questions. So what we chatted together a bit earlier, and we decided that instead of talk, everybody has expressed their views on plagiarism. What I will now do is I will ask each of the esteemed panelists a singular question which is one simple aspect of plagiarism, and they will try and address it to their viewpoint. And taking off from what Sabina just said, my first question would be for Vistas. If, like Sabina also was saying, that what is that fine line really? And in today's date of communication and instant transmittal of information.
If you've seen a built form and you've been kind of influenced by that, it will stay in your mind. But then when you start drawing, if you can use your own flair, as I said that, I like to do things differently. So even if the subject remains the same, I would want to each time, even for my own self, want to do it a little differently because, as Vishal said, what are we here for? I mean, the biggest pride that we take is that we are creative people. In my office, what I say, every time these kids come to me and say, oh, you had said this about it. I said, if you bring a design to me, I will again design because I'm never going to be, I said this to you last time, but you've got the same design to me again, so I'll start designing again. I think that's what we live for. So, being influenced by any big designer, by any style, any the Franco Gehry's and the big guys of Zaha is fantastic. But if you can actually build like them, that'll be great as well.
Thank you. So I think going back to the drawing board is what is crucial today. My next question is for Mr. Kuldeep again. Like we just discussed, that we inhabit a technologically connected world, right? There's constant input of information, and everything is literally sort of a click away. So, from the product perspective, you were explaining some of the challenges that you have faced. Now, what do you actually do about it?
What do we do about it? That's a very interesting question. See, there's not much what you can do about it because in India it's actually a very big challenge to control copy. It's very difficult. Even if you are patent for the product, they will find you, as I said earlier. But the only way what you can do to control this copying is that you can use special textures in stainless steel, special finishes, which cannot be easily copied. Special material along with the. So that is the kind of. You'll have to be more innovative. Okay? Keep it innovating. That's the only way out. Because as I mentioned, we are a design-led company, and if we don't innovate, we will not be able to grow. So innovation is, I think, the only way out. And the use of latest technology, latest machinery, equipments. So that is what is required. Like for example, now there are a few products that we have come out with are in PVD coatings. Now PVD coating is a physical vapor deposition. Now that's not very much available in India. There are not many machines which are available in India. So that kind of technology if you use, so copying can be controlled in that process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, while innovation is key, seeding of ideas is not a notion of the past. Right? One of my earlier mentors once told me, and she gave me an insight into the science, that what is being seeded today in one part of the world as an idea is simultaneously being seeded somewhere else. So in that regard, when there are all these ideas simultaneously being seeded, what is plagiarism really? And I think this question I would like to ask Manishi.
Thank you, Daniel. I think it's a beautiful notion. I mean, how many of us here believe that somewhere in this world, someone is having, maybe not a panel discussion, but a discussion about the exact same thing that we're talking about? Do you think it's entirely impossible? I don't think so. I think it's entirely possible. I'm going to take a minute here and talk about plagiarism in nature. How many of us have heard that there are 6 of us who look exactly the same? How many of us? And how many of us believe it? I have seen 2 exactly similar people in the same city who don't know each other, are not related, they look exactly the same. So I'm waiting to see myself, but I haven't seen that, but I've seen somebody else. So is nature plagiarizing? Has nature run out of ideas to create new faces? Or is it a norm? Is it a way of life? Because there are how many billion of us here on earth? Okay, talking about, say, a product. So we see, because we were talking about products, it just came to my mind. What about tiles today? Are they plagiarizing nature and copying the stone patterns? Because that's nature. So is that plagiarizing, or is that taking inspiration and creating something for, in a lower cost, for somebody who can't maybe afford stone and wants a quick job done at a site, in a good look? So, I mean, where do you draw the line again? Is it plagiarizing or inspiration? Biomimicry, for example. Could I be researching a project or a concept in nature and building something on it, and maybe UX office doing the same thing? I'm not saying we'll end up building the exact same thing, but then it's the same inspiration. Also, need of the hour. I think we need, as Indian architects, to start plagiarizing Indian architecture that was done probably last century or 3, 4, 5 centuries before today. And we need to add our creativity and the technological advancements that are available today and create something that's need of the hour. But again, is it plagiarizing? Will somebody turn around and say that you copied what so and so did 300 years ago? But that is something that fits our context, environment. That is something that I think is required to be done. So you really need to take this inspiration. Okay, another thought. Dan Brown said, I mean, I don't know how many of us have read Dan Brown, said that today, all the money that is being spent, well, not all, maybe most of it, to do research and establish facts, we are just re-establishing those facts that a lot of us, not us, our ancestors, knew way back. We're just doing that. So there are so many ideas, and like, it was touched upon earlier that there are that many ideas in the world. It happens in our studio where we do something, do some sketching, doodling, design something, and to be able to show it to the client, we see, okay, let me just search if there's something similar being done already. We are very happy with us earlier because we think that wow, we created something new. But then bang, we do some search and we find out it's already been done. And you think that is there anything new really left to be done? So you really have to think for yourself. You take inspiration, add your own personality to it. Okay, about a couple of years, how many of us are Marvel fans here? So they started off with having the beard, and then the last Marvel movie, he said, okay, Thor tells to Captain America, okay, you have the same beard now. But so is that plagiarizing? Is that copying? But everybody's going to spot their own personalities with it, right? So there is really like a lot happening around, and you can talk about design or all these various aspects that I'm touching about, and they are all things that are happening, and I think it's natural to be taking inspiration and getting in your own touch to it as designers. Like you said, nobody wants to do a same thing. Then how are you going to publish your designs? Everybody's going to know that this is a copy of that and that is a copy of that. So you don't do it intentionally, of course. Nobody would want that. But like Sabina said, draw a line and know the extents of your inspiration. Don't step over and make it a blatant copy. I think that's what I would like to add.
Thank you so much, Manishi. So last but not the least, I would like to ask Sabina. So inspiration or plagiarism, whatever we may call it, right? Is it merely dependent on the reader or the viewer? Is it all just perception of what we think of it, defined by accompanying text? Sometimes in architecture, like you were saying, that we get our work published, so we define what we have done. So is it just dependent on what we say as architects, or is it also dependent on what the reader perceives? Because what you may not consider to be a copy may be considered to be a copy by somebody else. What is your take on that?
Thank you, Tanya. Like I just said in the brief earlier, was that we are in the larger domain of being visible, and our creations are out there for everyone to see. That's where you said is where a viewer can compare the two more easily than the others in the other fields. As I said, in the literary field, if they haven't read a book, A or a text or something, but a building is easily comparable. But what I mean, where I come from is that the plagiarism that we are discussing, the fine line, as Vivek and Vistap said, that if the first seeking inspiration is okay, but as long as we don't make it unethical, if your first idea has come, like you said, at the stroke of a pencil, so the idea has originated from you actually, and probably refining your creation or working on your creation down the line if you have taken inspiration, I don't see no harm in it. As long as I think what he was also meaning was that these youngsters have so much to, as references available everywhere. As long as your basic creation, your basic beginning doesn't start at seeking an inspiration, a referral, and then working on it. So if that is to begin at your end, it's your idea, you ideate, and then you probably seek inspiration because it's all out there, for you to seek reference from. Like you mentioned, we've had the masters, we've had the different schools of design and we do seek inspiration from each one of them. So that becomes one part of where the idea must come in. And like what he mentioned is, in the age of technology, we do have a system, at every desk. But my work desk, whether I believe, I come from an old school of thought, my work desk in the office has my system and the good old drawing board. We're the only one in my office because the first sketch I have to put pencil to paper to be able to come out with a sketch, and then that is what the office works on. So I still believe in the two because I don't believe the first stroke for an idea can be done on a computer. That's not me, probably old school of thought, like I said, but that is it. So as long as the idea comes yours, you seek inspiration. I don't think it is highly unethical. Secondly, what I mentioned earlier was the extent of copying. So the copying and creativity, that's where the fine line is. That to what extent have you copied it for the viewer out there to see and compare apples to apples? So because we are in that reality, so the comparison becomes more direct and more blatant. Like I said, also the author, from whom you would have taken inspiration, would definitely grow. Be able to say that, okay, this has been inspired from me. Many times we cannot, it's not very tangible because you would have music-inspired art, you would have art-inspired architecture, you would have literature-inspired movies, So is all of that plagiarism? Or is all of that taking inspiration and giving it your own creativity? So it is in those different domains and it's an overlapping domain within that creative field, and more so we discuss about plagiarism because in the larger creative domain. Because each one inherently is creative, like you said, as architects, each one has its own creativity, Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think when we're talking about plagiarism, it's very important to understand why does it happen. The why needs to come out in terms of, I don't think there's any architect who wants to, copy or, at all. I don't think there's a lack of effort level. I think everybody, has gone through enough life experiences, etc., to be able to actually come up with their own designs. I think there are two factors here. I think many a times nowadays, it's this instant age, it's instant karma. You need to be able to actually instantly serve out something, the West still has, a good amount of time given to every project, whereas we are somehow always hard pressed for time. So either we are picking up some idea we'd already baked and kept in the refrigerator, bringing it out and, putting it in the microwave, heating it, giving it some garnishing and serving it, or we're, looking out from somebody else's refrigerator and we're really, sneaking something out quickly, mixing it with somebody else's, a little bit of Vivek, a little bit of Manishi, put together and, serving it. You never know. That's the kind of, problem that we face in the industry. We are not getting the right time. How many of us actually tell a client that in order to come up with a more justifiable solution to any project of any scale, it could be a product design, it could be a master plan. How many of us say that we need a certain amount of time to really, get down to doing something original? Original, again, is a very debatable word. What is original? One doesn't really know. But that's number one. Number two, I think every client today thinks he knows it all. I mean, every client is today the first architect of the project, and you are then the second architect who's helping him coordinate everything. So, we have clients who travel the world, as have all of us, and who know everything, and who are actually picking out 8 or 10 pictures and saying, "Mujhe aisa chahiye," ya "Mujhe aisa, I want something like this," or "I want." So, you appreciate that a picture says 1,000 words, and you understand all that, and you glean out the important things, and you try and convey. But there are clients who say, "No, I want it exactly like that." Now that's the time you got to take a call yourself. I mean, are you going to go ahead with this, or are you going to draw some lines and say, "Okay, we're not going to go down this line. We're not going to be, doing this." But then comes the thought, and everybody in their studio will have their second advisor who come and say, "Sir, hum nahi karenge to koi aur karega." So, we may as well do it. So these are the things that really happen in practice that you really need to take a call on, and you really need to, jolt your own conscience and, take a stand on things. So I think that's very important when we talk about plagiarism and inspiration.
Thank you so much. Very, very nice. Can I just add? Yes,
Sure.
that's all.
You've put to rest a thing that's been going on in my mind. So, without taking names, I'm going to tell a small incident. One of our clients said that we were doing interior design of their high-end housing tower lobbies. So they said and clubs. So they said you have to come and see this project in Noida, and it's amazingly done, and I'm sure we'll be able to take some inspiration from it. So we go there, and I'm not kidding when I saw that lobby of one of the towers, it was the exact same design that we've done for a corporate office in Gurgaon, which has been published widely. I was shocked out of my wits when I saw that, and I took that particular client to show that, this is my project and this was done much before this was done. But now when you said this about the client's demand, I am giving that benefit of doubt to that designer today, thinking that maybe the client saw our project and said that I want something like this, or I want this, So I think you've touched upon a very important aspect of plagiarism, where the clients actually, sometimes it has happened, I'm sure with all of us, that it happens that they turn around and they say that, okay, this is what I want. And when you try to do something which you think is better, they still don't budge from that notion of thinking that a picture that they have liked or a place that they have visited is the best fit for a particular place.
It's our conscience. We have to certainly decide whether we are ready to copy somebody else's work or no. Or for that matter, be a direct inspiration of something that the client is showing. In the world of optics today, architecture is the most under pressure kind of a profession, because at least the doctors today in a lot of hospitals try to please leave your Google knowledge outside before you come for consultation. I think we as architects should also start writing and leave your interests and all those images that you have gathered outside if you want real creativity. Otherwise, you are, as Gustav said, the first architect. You're good enough to find a draftsman and do. The difference between somebody who drafts a design and somebody who actually designs is this: that if we don't seed that ground to the clients, then we'll be an extinct profession soon, because there is everything is available on the visual domain today.
I'm literally going to try that one day. I'm going to put a board outside my office and say that leave the phone outside or the Pinterest outside.
Okay, thank you. Do we have time for a couple of questions? 1 or 2 questions? Anybody?
नमस्कार, मेरा नाम अशोक गोयल है, मैं एसपी दिल्ली से हूँ। जो नकल है उसके लीगल एस्पेक्ट अगर हम मार्केट समझ लें तो ये मामला खत्म हो जाता है। कॉपीराइट एक्ट कहता है जहां पर भी स्किल और लेबर इस्तेमाल हो गया वो कॉपीराइट से बाहर हो गया। 1948 का एक इंसिडेंट बताता हूँ, मामला सुप्रीम कोर्ट में गया। महात्मा गांधी की जब हत्या हुई तो महात्मा गांधी का एक चित्र 25 पैसे में बिक रहा था। खूब जो ये जो श्रीमान जी कहते हैं महात्मा गांधी का चित्र मेरा बनाया हुआ है, इनका नहीं है। 2 चित्रों को जोड़ा, एक का सर और एक का धड़, और इन्होंने जोड़ के इस चित्र को बना दिया। तो इनका कॉपीराइट कहाँ हुआ? तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा कि इसमें अपना स्किल एंड लेबर इस्तेमाल करा है। एक सर को और एक धड़ को जोड़ने में आपने कुछ नहीं करा, आपने कॉपी करा। इस तरीके से ये संगीत की कविता संग्रह दूसरे पब्लिशर ने वैसा का वैसे ही भेजा। उसकी कविताएं कॉपीराइट फ्री हो चुकी हैं। ऑथर की डेथ के 50 साल बाद कॉपीराइट फ्री हो जाता है। 60 साल हो गए, 60 साल बाद फ्री होता है। मामला शांति निकेतन रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर का था, तो 60 साल हो गया। तो उसमें भी यही बात आई। उसने कहा साहब मैंने 15 कविताएं छापी हैं, ये इस पब्लिशर का तो राइट है नहीं, मैंने भी उसकी कविताएं ली है, इसने भी उसकी कविताएं ली है। उसने कहा जिस फॉर्म में, जिस पैटर्न में इसने कविताएं ली है उसी में आपने छापा। और तीसरा एक मामला था, अगर आप मेरे को परमिट करें मैं बोलता हूँ, शास्त्र का। तकरीबन हर पब्लिशर इस किताब को छाप रहा है। तो मामला स्किल एंड लेबर का है। अगर आर्टिस्ट इसको समझ लें, ये आपने सामने बोला कि प्लेगिज्म इंटेंशनल नहीं होता, प्लेगिज्म हमेशा इंटेंशनल होता है। जो भी आदमी नकल मार रहा है उसको पता है उसने कहां से नकल मारी है। आई एम इन द फील्ड ऑफ बुक्स राइटिंग, मेरी करीब 1 मिलियन रीडर है, 10 लाख लोग पढ़ चुके हैं मेरी किताबों को। तो हमारी सोच ये प्रोडक्ट पे भी है। साहब जो बैठे हैं उनको एक बात कहूंगा, कोई व्यक्ति आपका प्रोडक्ट नकल करके कैसे बेच रहा है? इसलिए बेच पा रहा है कि वो आपसे सस्ता बना रहा है। मैं आर्किटेक्चर एंट्रेंस की मेरी ढेर सारी किताबें हैं, गेट की किताब है, सीट की किताब है। मैं खत्म करूंगा, 1 सेकंड में खत्म कर रहा हूं। अगर आप वैल्यू फॉर मनी किसी को भी देंगे और उस वैल्यू पे उसको दे पाएंगे तो कोई उसको कॉपी नहीं कर पाएगा। थैंक यू।
Thank you very much.